Hello everyone, my name is Sagarika and I'm a student of B.Ed first semester. I'm going to present this presentation on the topic reading and reflecting on test. These are the topics that I'm going to cover in this presentation. So the very first question that comes in our mind is, what is reading? Reading is one of the most powerful skills to learn any language. We all know this. It is defined as a cognitive process that involves decoding symbols to achieve the meaning. Reading is an active process to constructive meaning of words. Primary function of reading is to understand the text. Moving to the next slide. This is an extra slide which I have added. It is reading versus literacy. Many of us get confused between these two, but these two are not the same, they are different. Reading proficiency suggests two things: the ability to decode a written text and make meaningful out of it. Whereas literacy, on the other hand, is ability to assess, assimilate, and analyze information. Literacy includes the ability to write as well. Moving to the next slide. Levels of reading. There are three levels of reading: the literal level, the inferential level, the critical, or you can say evaluative level. So the first level, which is a literal level, at this level whatever is conveyed is understood at the surface level, that is reading the line. So the next level of reading is the inferential level. This occurs when one concept, a part of the text, with another one arrives at a constructive. This is a skill we use in everyday life. So the third level is the critical or evaluative level. At this level, reader use their own experience to evaluate what they are reading. This could be a character in a story, a situation, or a phenomena, and there form an opinion about it. Moving to the next slide, which contain types of reading: intensive reading and extensive reading. These are the two types of reading. So let's just compare these two types of reading side by side: intensive reading and extensive reading. Intensive reading is carefully reading through every word of the text from beginning to end so as to understand and evaluate its content in depth. Whereas in extensive reading, you read as many different kinds of book, journal, and in paper as you can, chiefly for pleasure, and only need a general understanding of the content. Example of intensive reading is reading an article on which you have to submit a term paper, whereas example of extensive reading is reading a newspaper on anything. Moving to the next slide, which is techniques of reading. There are two techniques of reading, which are skimming reading and scanning reading. Let's just compare these two types of techniques of reading side by side. Skimming reading. Skimming is a reading just those parts of the text that are most likely to indicate what the author is talking about at different points, in order to gain an overview of the content. Skimming through the day newspaper to get an overview of the news. Whereas scanning reading. Scanning reading is looking through a text to find keywords and phrases that are likely to indicate the specific information that you are seeking. For example, you have to scan through the following material to answer this question of the following. Moving to the next slide, this slide contains importance of developing reading skills. These are the few points that I have collected. The importance of developing reading skills, which are, for example, reading is fundamental. It helps to gain knowledge, gives a direction to our life, strengthens our vocabulary, which will develop a good self-image, improve memory power. Reading develops imagination and intelligence. Moving to the next slide, it contains barriers of reading. I have pointed out 5 important barriers of reading, but there are much more, which are socio-economic factors, physiological factors, cognitive factors, psychological factors, and linguistic factors. Let's just understand all these factors in a very brief manner. Socio-economic factors. Poverty-related reasons such as lacking of availability of interesting reading material, for example, storybooks, books which contain images, pictures, colorful images. And then psychological factors, lack of motivation. Lack of proper motivation and goals may create barriers to reading. Cognitive factors, lack of concentration. In the absence of these cognitive skills, the capacity to concentrate affects reading. Physiological factors, narrow eye span. Linguistic factors, lack of grammatical and linguistic competency. It hampers the process of reading. 5 stages in development of reading. Meine Wolf, 2008, in his book Prostitute and the Squid, The Story and the Science of the Reading Brain, identified the following 5 stages in the development of reading skills in an individual. The first is the emerging pre-readers, typically between 6 months to 6-year-olds. The novice reader, typically between 6 to 7 years old. The decoding reader, typically between 7 to 9 years old. The fluent, comprehending readers, typically between 9 to 15 years old. And the last one is the expert reader, typically from 16th year and older. Moving to the last topic of my presentation, which is role of teacher in developing reading skills. These are the few points I have collected. The first point is provide a rich and varied literacy environment that includes interesting reading material, displays and engaging multimedia resource that reflect the culture of the school and the community. Provide opportunity for the student to choose their own reading material and developing a sense of control over the reading process. The third point is integrate reading into other activity to show that it is essential everyday skills with practical. Point number 4, answer children's question and monitor performance. Use a variety of assessment tools for reading. Relate reading to other areas of student life. Create a record of student progress in reading. So with this, I finally end my presentation. Thank you for listening.